Hi, good evening. Welcome to Prime Business. My name is James Asian. To our very first story this evening, the country could, in the coming month, witness an improvement in its ratings. This was after government advanced some 10 billion cedis as interest payment to bondholders. We have details in the following report.
Ghana is currently classified within the B ratings range and with a stable outlook by some of the rating agencies. Now, the country got to this level after some improvement in the economy and debt payment. Going through most of the reports by the International Credit Ratings, Ghana's decision to embark on a debt restructuring and delays in paying debt owed bondholders was a major factor in downgrading Ghana over the past years. Some market watchers have argued that based on this latest round of payment, the rating agencies will definitely upgrade Ghana when it comes to its ability to settle its debt owed investors on time. Another issue that will work in Ghana's favor is the fact that the country currently has a strong reserve position, and that should also give some comfort to investors when it comes to future debt payment. We should also not forget about the cedi stability over the past month and how that could also influence Ghana's credit ratings going forward.
Now, meanwhile, Associate Director Financial Advisory at Deloitte, Dennis Brown, said the move will improve investor confidence in Ghana's economy.
Exactly what I said initially, to boost investor confidence in the economy, because we made a certain commitment to investors, in this case domestic bondholders or domestic investors, and you have met it in a timely manner. In fact, the government to assure investors in its first budget indicated I was going to create a sinking fund where I was going to allocate funds purposely for meeting these commitments as they fell due, and this is exactly what they've done. So it's like going back to investors and say, well, I gave you my word and this is it. So it only boosts confidence in our economy, not only from the perspective of the domestic investors who has received their payment, but the international creditors are also watching and are also nodding their head that, okay, these guys are serious. It looks like they have improved in terms of liquidity and solvency. It looks like they have built enough reserves, and it looks like the economy has stabilized, and that's how come they are able to meet this commitment. So they should be willing and ready to do business with us.
Now to the banking sector, and the Governor of the Bank of Ghana, Dr. Johnson Isiama, has cautioned banks against complacency in credit risk management, despite recent improvement in asset quality. Addressing heads of banks at the 128th post-MPC meeting, the Governor acknowledged that non-performing loans (NPLs) have declined. However, he stressed that they remain above benchmark levels and continue to pose a structural concerns for the industry.
Dr. Isiama at the meeting warned that as credit expansion resumes in a stabilizing macroeconomic environment, underwriting discipline and rigorous sectoral risk assessment will be critical to sustaining gains.
Similarly, while non-performing loans have declined, they remain above benchmark levels. And as credit expansion resumes, underwriting discipline and sectoral risk assessment will be critical. Stability must now translate into purposeful intermediation, supporting agriculture, manufacturing, SMEs, and value-adding sectors without reintroducing asset quality pressures. Business model analysis will now form an embedded part of supervisory assessment, supporting the early identification of emerging risks and enabling timely policy and supervisory interventions.
The Governor of the Bank of Ghana, Dr. Johnson Isiama, also pushed for more banks to list on the Ghana Stock Exchange as part of effort to deepen Ghana's capital market and strengthen corporate governance in the financial sector.
At the same time, the Bank of Ghana has inaugurated a steering and technical committee to guide work on encouraging more banks to list on the Ghana Stock Exchange. Remember, we discussed this issue last year. This initiative brings together key institutions across the financial system, including the Bank of Ghana, the Securities and Exchange Commission, the Ghana Stock Exchange itself, the Ministry of Finance is part, the National Insurance Commission, the Ghana Securities Industry Association, the Central Securities Depository, and the Ghana Association of Banks. Colleagues, listing is not only about capital raising. It broadens ownership, strengthens governance, and it deepens transparency, as well as anchoring banks more firmly in domestic long-term savings enhancing resilience and trust in the system.
The Bank of Ghana says it will remain firm but fair in its supervisory engagement as the sector transitions from stability to structural strengthening.
Away from the banking sector now, after facing near collapse and property seizures, produce buying company has announced the reopening of all buying centers nationwide, signaling massive revival and confidence in the sector. The announcement follows reforms by government to empower the state-owned bulk cocoa purchasing company. Here is more from a presser organized by the company.
Highlighting the company's readiness to align with ongoing reforms, Managing Director of the Produce Buying Company, Seydou Nyonye, announced the reopening of all purchasing centers nationwide, cautioning farmers against trading with unlicensed buying companies.
To protect farmers from payment risks, we strongly advise farmers to transact business exclusively with the state-owned PBC Limited or other LBCs with verifiable offices and structures. This will mitigate counterparty risks and ensure payment security. Selling to unauthorized buyers expose you to significant payment risks.
Following the seizure of some of the company's assets by banks due to insolvency, he explained that government is exploring all available options to develop a sustainable financial model to revive the company's operations.
One of the options was to find out what asset we had that can take care of this debt from the banks. We have been in talks with them, we have been following them. And the other aspect was an expectation of government coming to take off this burden of debts from the bank from us. So these are the two options available to us, and we are in constant talks with the banks. We have done registration of farmers, we have the basis, and we believe that going forward we can make PBC to bounce back healthier.
He expressed the optimism that reforms announced by the finance minister would ensure sustainability across the entire cocoa value chain.
Fortunately, we fall under finance ministry. And the finance minister had come out with cabinet's position on PBC, cocoa board, and CPC rather, which obviously they would have had a plan for. So we don't need to talk much on this. The finance minister knows the burdens of PBC, and they would have taken all this into consideration, mitigating the challenges that we have and getting us off this.
Management also urged the Ghana Cocoa Board to expedite payment processes to address challenges related to delayed payments. They emphasized that reviving the company's operations signals renewed confidence in Ghana's cocoa industry.
Now, government is ramping up investment in mini-grid technology to fast-track electricity access to underserved communities across the country. Director for Renewable Energy and Green Transition at the Ministry of Energy and Green Transition, Engineer Seth Mau, says the initiative is critical to closing the country's remaining access gap as extending the national grid becomes increasingly costly. Speaking at the stakeholder forum in Accra, he noted that about 3.5 million people still lack power, and nearly 400 mini-grids will be required to achieve universal access by 2030.
And development partners are stepping up efforts to expand mini-grid deployment as Ghana pushes toward universal electricity access. Speaking at the stakeholder forum in Accra, Director for Renewable Energy and Green Transition at the Ministry of Energy and Green Transition, Engineer Seth Mau, said studies show Ghana would need nearly 400 mini-grids to achieve full access, adding that the systems are being built grid-ready for seamless integration when the national grid expands.
Today, over 600 million people in Africa do not have access to electricity, and extending the national grid to cover these people is quite expensive, and that is why this mini grid technology is so crucial, and bringing all the experts to come and deliberate on this matter here in Accra is very, very important and vital to us. If we take Ghana, we have an access rate that is 89%. We have about 11% more to go. That's about 3.5 million people who do not have access to electricity. And interest interestingly, these people reside in areas that the extension of the national grid is quite a challenge economically and technically. That is why we are pushing very hard the mini grid concept to be able to connect all these people. We've done studies that have revealed that we need close to 400 number mini grids to be constructed between now and 2030 to be able to connect everybody in this country.
According to Professor Corneliu Babu, expanding mini-grid infrastructure could significantly improve livelihoods in remote communities, particularly around the Molly National Park, while donor funding continues to cushion the high upfront cost of deployment.
Through this project, we're bringing electricity to some of the remote communities around Molly National Park. And naturally bringing electricity to these communities are going to improve their livelihood, standard of living. It's going to have beneficial health effects, those kind of things.
Africa Energy Parks Projects Manager Moses Mengo says the new model marks a shift from traditional rural electrification by enabling communities to both generate and consume power through solar and biomass-based mini-grids.
Electricity will be generated from their village. They would be the ones providing the means for generating the electricity. It will come from solar, the panels will be in their village. It will come from biomass. They would supply the feed to the plant that would generate the energy. So they are not just consumers. In this case, they are also producers. This is the main difference between the microgrid system and the normal electricity system.
Stakeholders remain optimistic that sustained investment, policy support and community participation will accelerate mini-grid deployment and move Ghana closer to achieving universal electricity access by 2030.
Now, let's stay a while on energy as Sunon Asogli Power Ghana Limited plans to add 850 megawatts of thermal and 400 megawatts of renewable energy in its third phase, costing over $1 billion, which will boost power supply and create jobs in the sub-region. Director of the Sunon Asogli Board and Paramount Chief of Asogli State, Togui Afede, announced this at the Chinese Spring Festival at Bon Year in the Greater Accra region. Kwame Yanka has more in this report.
Nearly 2 decades ago, at the height of Ghana's power crisis, then chairman of Shenzhen Energy Group, Gao Zemin, made and fulfilled a promise to build a 200-megawatt plant within a year, transforming the country's energy trajectory. That investment became the foundation of Sunon Asogli Power Ghana Limited, the country's first independent power producer, which expanded from initial 200 megawatts to 500 megawatts in the second phase. This positioned the company as one of the country's most reliable and efficient power generators. President of the Asogli Traditional Area and Board Director of Sunon Asogli, Togui Afede, the 14th, reviewed plans for an 850-megawatt third-phase thermal plant and up to 400 megawatts from renewable energy.
Asogli Power has acquired 4 sites in the north for the development of solar power projects, with an initial target of 200 megawatts. It is also working on a 100 to 200 megawatts wind farm in the Sege area of the Adan West District. And very importantly, we also have planned our third phase thermal project at this site, which will add 850 megawatts. Your Excellency, we are very much encouraged by the stability President Mahama's government, that is your government, has brought to our economy, and the consequent enhanced outlook for our economy.
Chair of Sunon Asogli Power Ghana Limited, Wang Jin Xiao, highlighted the company's focus on sustainability and innovation, including pilot solar-powered electric vehicle charging stations and the upcoming introduction of electric vehicles in Ghana.
Beginning next month, that's in March, we will commence the testing of electric vehicle charging station powered by the solar energy. Construction of these facilities is already underway just within our power plant. These stations will serve as a pilot projects, helping us refine our systems, and prepare for wider deployment. In addition, we will be introducing electrical vehicle into Ghana from next month for testing and operational use.
Vice President of Shenzhen Energy, Liu Shili, lauded management and workers over their dedication in the last 2 decades and thanking government for the needed environment. Beyond this, I sincerely thank the management team of Sunon Asogli Power. You have led the team with dedication for 20 years, overcoming difficulties and achieving remarkable results time and again. My deep appreciation goes to the families and children who have supported us silently. My heartfelt gratitude goes to every Chinese and Ghanaian employee who have steadfastly held their posts. You have put aside your personal reunions for the greater good, demonstrating the responsibility of energy workers through your solid actions. Meanwhile, Vice President Professor Jean Nana Opoku-Agyeman emphasized Ghana and China's enduring partnership, noting Sunon Asogli Power's 2 decades of stabilizing the national grid and the commitment to transparent, development-focused cooperation.
Ghana approaches the future determined to deepen our cooperation that is transparent, fair, and aligned with our development priorities, particularly as we work to strengthen the systems that support industrial growth, energy security, and long-term economic resilience. The Spring Festival is traditionally a moment of renewal. It is time to take stock, clear what no longer serves us, and set intentions for the work ahead. As we enter the new year, Ghana does so with confidence in its own direction to partnerships that respect that direction. May the year ahead be marked not only by goodwill and celebration, but by results we can point to, including stronger institutions, more resilient infrastructure, and shared prosperity grounded in responsibility on both sides.
Beyond Ghana's borders, Sunon Asogli Power is set to commence electricity export to Burkina Faso in March this year, and with the support of its parent company, Shenzhen Energy Group, is positioning Ghana as a key power hub in West Africa.
In a move described as a long-term investment in human capital, the Bono East Regional Minister Francis Owusu-Antwi has officially handed over equipment to the first batch of the National Apprenticeship Program beneficiaries. The distribution at the Regional Coordinating Council forecourt in Techiman has been hailed not just as a solution to unemployment, but as the foundation for building a self-sufficient and skilled workforce. Anas Sabit has more.
It was a day of promise and opportunity in Techiman as the first batch of beneficiaries in the Bono East region officially received their starter packs under the National Apprenticeship Program. For these young men and women, it marks the beginning of a new chapter, not just in their lives, but in the story of Ghana's workforce. Bono East Regional Minister Francis Owusu-Antwi says the move is a genuine demonstration of government's commitment to tackling youth unemployment.
When you look at the various windows when it comes to flagship programs, the National Youth Apprenticeship Program is going to help us close the unemployment gap in the region. Look at the number of people we've trained. It means that they are going to be engaged, and for that matter, at the end of the month, they will also get something to feed their families. So it has created massive employment for the people of Bono East. We also advise the mastercraft persons to take good care of the apprentices so that they will have the good environment to study.
The regional coordinator of the National Apprenticeship Program, Kofi Baba, described the moment as a significant milestone. He had a simple but powerful message for the young artisans.
When you train somebody, give the person a skill, you have taken that person from the streets, and that go a long way to reduce unemployment rate in the country. God has not given all of us to have the benefit of the formal education. That is why the government has taken bold initiative to introduce this program to try and make it formal, so that the program will train a lot of young people in this country, so that we'll all be enjoying the national cake.
Dean of the MMDCs and MCE for Kindampo North, Isaac Donko, expressed excitement over the equipment and promised to monitor the progress of the program going forward.
In seeing this campaign promise come through, we are so excited. And the promise we are giving out is that we are going to make sure, as the representatives of the president in the various districts and the municipalities, this program, we are going to make sure that we pay keen interest and attention to it, to make sure that there is an effective supervision.
For these young people, the tools in their hands are the key to their independence. For the Bono East region, it is the site of a workforce being built one skill at a time. Some of them spoke to JoyNews.
I will say a big thank you to you. We will take good care of it so that others can also come and use it.
From dependency to dignity, from training to trade, with these investments, the National Apprenticeship Program is not just fighting unemployment, it is building a generation of entrepreneurs. Reporting for JoyNews, Anas Sabit, Tichiman.
Away from the Bono East region, now Cabinet has approved a new rent bill now awaiting parliamentary passage. The proposed law seeks to replace the 1963 Rent Act, which the Rent Control Department describes as outmoded and ineffective in addressing current housing challenges. There is more in the following report.
Concerns are mounting among tenants over the practice of demanding more than a year's rent in advance, which many say is taking a heavy toll on their finances. These concerns come at a time when Cabinet has approved a new rent bill aimed at reforming Ghana's rental housing sector. Tenants say exorbitant rent charges, among others, forces them to exhaust their savings simply to secure accommodation.
This 2 years rent is too much. You understand? Some people are selling pure water, some people are hawking. How can they afford 2 years straight up? So government should look into it. If 3 months, if possible monthly or 6 months, at least it will help people.
In Ghana here, you see a lot of landlords and landladies increasing their rents, not only increasing the rents, increasing the duration. Some will ask you 5 years in advance, some will ask you 10 years in advance, some will ask you to. The least you will get here in Ghana is 1 year.
The landlord or landwoman, you have to take it by 1 month to 6 months. That one is okay, because or 6 months to 1 year, it be okay. Because if you do a small job, you can't get 2 years rent. If you can't get 2 years, that means you go sleep floor, someone floor.
Now they say the rent for a Chema house self-contained, some 1,000 Ghana, some 500. So what can a small boy at the graduate where he can get 1,000 Ghana for 2 years? How?
In response to these concerns, the Public Relations Officer of the Rent Control Department, Emmanuel Posu, has outlined key areas the proposed rent bill seeks to address. He explained that the existing Rent Act of 1963 is outmoded and does not deal with the current challenges, as highlighted by some tenants.
We are proposing an independent assessment committee. People have the notion that rent officers alone cannot do the job. So now let's form a committee which will comprise landlords, a rep of Landlords Association, a rep of Tenants Association, any developer or surveyor within a district. It's going to be a district by district assessment committees, so that all these professionals will meet as and when to determine the rent that a tenant will pay, so that the landlord will not feel aggrieved that no, I'm being treated to collect or to take lower rent, or tenant will come out and say that no, I'm being induced to pay higher rent. When the assessment committee comes on board and determine the rent, you know you had your rep there who has championed your interest. So at the end of the day, you accept. So these are some of the key features in the bill. Students who are paying huge hostel fees. Okay, it's a problem. We started fighting, but there's no law backing it. So we'll go in there and then sit down with the university authorities and make sure they come out with a realistic hostel fees, as well as for the private ones too. We will sit down with the committee, the independent assessment committee, so that all of you will come on the round table and discuss and come out with a realistic hostel fee. And just as I mentioned, the most important thing is that the 1963 law is outmoded, and there are features or new features in the rental industry, which we have to move with time.
One controversial provision in the proposed bill is the criminalization of both landlords and tenants who engage in illegal rent advance agreements.
And that's all for Prime Business with me, James Ishen. For more stories, log on to myjoyonline.com/business. Up next is sports. Good evening.